Okay, welcome back, everybody, for the Happy Hearing podcast. Today is a reintroduction to our podcast. I'm here with my co-host Carly Sygrove, and we're going to be, discussing what we've been doing over the last year. This is actually just past our 1 year anniversary, so I just want to congratulate us on getting to this point and all of the interesting content that we've been putting out there. It's really been a great experience, and in terms of the audience response and questions and sparking new ideas, it's been really, really nice to watch it develop over the last year, and we're looking forward to the upcoming year to bringing you new content and interesting speakers and hopefully new ideas and new updates. So just as a reminder, I'm Dr. Ruth Reisman. I am actually based in New York City. I am a full-time professor and doctoral lecturer at the City University of New York. And I also have a private practice by the name of Urban Hearing, where we specialize in auditory processing disorders, particularly in individuals with ADHD, and offering all types of different hearing technology to our patients as well. So I just want to reintroduce my co-host Carly, and she's going to talk about what she's been up to and her background as well. Carly.
Hi everyone. Hi Ruth. Firstly, Ruth, happy anniversary.
Same to you.
Welcome everyone to the Happy Hearing podcast. This is episode 16. I'm Carly Sygrove. I'm a hearing loss coach, hearing health advocate and writer. And as Dr. Reisman has said, today's a little bit different because we're going to reintroduce ourselves, share a little bit of our stories, and maybe just talk about how the podcast first began. So if you haven't joined us or tuned in yet regularly, this is a perfect episode to get started. If you like the episode, I'd like to remind you just to like it or subscribe or leave a comment. So we hope you enjoy this one. I think, Dr. Reisman, I think the best question to start with would be just for you to tell us a little bit about how you actually got into audiology.
Sure. So it's interesting because recently I don't often think about how I got into the field. I often think about how I can advance myself within the field. And just recently I was speaking to some young adults, and they were all curious about how I got into the field and found it very unique and interesting because not many I guess you don't often find audiologists in your typical day-to-day life unless you're seeking out support for your hearing. So there were a number of things that actually brought me into the field, but I think the one that stands out the most was watching my mother experience significant hearing loss that kind of deteriorated over time due to a disorder called otosclerosis, which is stiffening essentially of the middle ear bones or middle ear ossicles that actually was not a genetic factor, because I was kind of concerned that maybe I would, because there is a strong genetic component with otosclerosis, and I always thought that maybe I would experience it as well. But it was actually determined that she had the German measles as a child, and this was a secondary effect. So I know I was very young when it happened, and she was taking me to the pediatrician, and the pediatrician said, I think your daughter is going to be perfectly fine, but it seems like you're not hearing me very well. And that precipitated, a series of events of just getting her hearing tested by multiple professionals, and she went for different opinions. And ultimately the best treatment, especially when it is treatable and limited to the middle ear, is surgery. But surgery is a very scary thought and a very scary concept. So she avoided it for many, many years, and went through a series of different hearing aids, trying to find, what would help her hear best. After a number of years with hearing aids and struggling, and eventually her hearing becoming pretty severe, the doctor kind of told her, you're really young. The surgery is going to be successful for you. You're a really good candidate. I would highly recommend that you do it before it becomes something more significant. So I just recall going to the hospital, visiting her there. So all of that and how much it changed her life. So when I started studying it in university, I think that was the largest inspiration. And I had a really close friend whose mother was an audiologist, and I observed what she did on a day-to-day basis, and that just furthered my interest. So um, I guess the rest is history, so to speak.
Mhm.
And now I love it so much that I actually teach it, and I'm always looking for, new ways to evolve within the field, which is really nice.
Mhm. Cool. I'm wondering, Ruth, you said that after the surgery that you just recognized how much your mum's life changed. Did you want to tell us a little bit more about like the difference you remember seeing in her before and after surgery?
Yeah, I recall that she struggled a lot with the hearing aids because obviously she was young. She was in her early 30s at the time, and she didn't want anyone to know that she had hearing loss, or that, especially back then, it was still, there was still the stigma associated with it. And now, thankfully, some of those walls are kind of breaking down. So she would get these very small, completely in the canal devices, but they didn't really service the degree of hearing loss. So she was always
Mm,
whistling and fiddling around with them, and felt uncomfortable and was a little withdrawn in various social environments because ultimately, even though she had the devices, they weren't appropriate for her hearing loss and she wasn't hearing well. So after the surgery, she essentially went back to normal hearing and completely closed the gap. So getting back to normal or natural hearing in life was, you can imagine, pretty life changing. I've
mm,
experienced it myself because I had, as an audiologist, which is really funny or ironic in a way, I had sudden hearing loss in my left ear.
mhm,
And for 2 months, I felt almost every symptom that my patients feel. It was that I had dizziness, I had really severe tinnitus, um, vertigo, obviously an imbalance, and then significant hearing loss that didn't get restored until about a month and a half or 2 months in. But for those 2 months, I struggled and had to actually wear a hearing aid just to be able to function in a day-to-day environment. And when it came back, you only appreciate what you have once it's lost. And when it came back, it was a really significant eye-opening experience or life experience. So I could imagine that that's how my mother felt, especially having had the hearing loss for a really long time. And I think that's part of what connected us because we both had our sudden hearing loss, but maybe some different or different avenues or different paths, different outcomes. So maybe Carly, you can also share how you got into the field, and where you're at, and if you want to give us any updates on the last year, on the past year.
mhm. Thank you. Yeah, so I think we probably did connect originally because of our sudden hearing loss. It's hard to quite remember how we connected, but I think it would be over that. So yeah, I had a sudden hearing loss in my left ear. The hearing loss was profound, and my hearing, unlike Ruth's hearing, didn't recover. So I have been living with single-sided deafness in my left ear for 8 years. And since having my hearing loss, I have connected with so many people, people going through sudden hearing loss, people like me who had never even knew this was a thing until it happened to them. And I've also connected with professionals in the field as well. I've been a part of research. A lot of people I connected with initially was through my blog, which is called My Hearing Loss Story. And that's my personal story. So that's where I write about my treatment, what I've been through, dealing with the balance issues that came with the hearing loss. So it's a very personal account of what I'm been through and what I'm going through. More recently, I have found I'm a candidate for a cochlear implant for single-sided deafness. And yesterday, big news, I've got my surgery date now. So my surgery will be in 3 weeks. I'm super excited. I've waited a long time for this, and I'm just now just preparing for it and making sure I've got all my questions before the surgery. So yeah, that all of this is in my blog, which is called My Hearing Loss Story. I think for me, losing my hearing has it's almost given me this extra bit of confidence,
Mhm.
and it's also almost made me feel like I'm excited to meet new people. I'm excited to get to know people's stories and to talk to people and find out more about them. And the more I did this with people who were living experiences like mine, so people who had had sudden hearing loss or whose loved ones had sudden hearing loss, the more passionate I became about raising awareness and helping others dealing with this. And I started a Facebook support group, also called My Hearing Loss Story. And I kept hearing the same stories from people. So people saying how they'd lost confidence initially when their hearing loss happened. So trying to navigate your life with reduced sound is actually really difficult when you've not had any time to prepare. You know, this is something that's happened suddenly. So there's a process there. And there's also a process of, for many people, grieving. So grieving your lost sound. So when you lose that hearing, you need to work through those feelings. Maybe you're feeling shocked or angry or depressed or sad, and it does take time for some people to get to acceptance, and I know that was a big thing for me, and it was only after going through all of this that I realized I'd been grieving and had needed that time just to experience that. Once you get through the other side, that's when you can start working on how you want to live with your hearing loss. What do you want to do with your life with your hearing loss? And I think that's where I saw a need for extra support for people, because for me and for many other people, you maybe will try a hearing aid or a cochlear implant or something, some kind of hearing technology. Maybe it'll work for you, maybe it won't. But then there's the process of actually learning to live with your hearing loss. And there was nobody out there helping with this. So the audiologists were doing amazing jobs helping with the hearing equipment and, with some counseling. But actually, I felt there needed to be more. It's so difficult navigating the world when you've suddenly lost your hearing, and that's where I stepped in. So the reason I became a hearing loss coach was to help those people navigate that transition. Also, people who have had hearing loss for a long time, but maybe want to make a change in their lives. Maybe they want to get a new job. Maybe they want to go on a new adventure, but they're not sure how to tackle it without having full hearing. So yeah, I help lots of people with balance issues as well, just from using my own experience. And that's how I got into my field, Ruth, is it's through personal experience and that journey myself, and just becoming this passionate advocate for people and then pouring my heart into it. I think my experience as a teacher just was the best foundation for this. And yeah, now I'm doing something I love because of my hearing loss.
I think our shared stories are hopefully inspiring to those who are listening. And
Hmm.
congratulations on finally getting your surgery date. And my
Thank
hope is
you.
that everything will go smoothly and successfully. And it sounds like you'll be having some renewed hearing for the upcoming new year and
Yeah.
holidays, which is pretty nice timing or very
Hmm.
timely in a way.
Hmm.
And for those of you who are interested in our hearing loss story and our journey, there is a podcast on that. Carly, do you recall the episode number?
I think it's episode 15.
Yeah, episode
Hmm.
15. So for those of you who are interested in knowing more about our stories, you're always welcome to go back to that episode. Um, we've this is episode 16. So up until now, we have about 15 episodes of really interesting topics, really interesting hosts. So for those of you who haven't had the opportunity to listen, I would encourage you to go back. There are a few really, really interesting ones that brought some insights and eye-opening thoughts and ideas that I didn't even think about, or maybe that Carly didn't even think about
Mm.
being so involved in the field. So I wanted to thank everybody for joining us today for our reintroduction and also for our celebratory year anniversary, also celebrating Carly's upcoming
Mhm.
surgery and all the exciting things that we will be getting to this year. We
Mhm.
also wanted to thank our partners, which is one of the new um, I guess, advancements in this year that we partnered with 3C Digital Media to host our podcast on their platform, which has been a great way to really get added users and added exposure. So we wanted to thank them as well. And I'm going to give the floor to Carly to give any last remarks. And we look forward to hearing from everybody and gaining new listeners. So pass on the word if you find this podcast helpful and interesting.
Thank you, Ruth. I think the only thing I'd like to say is thank you for people who are already listening. And please share our podcast with people you think might be interested. We are always happy to receive comments or emails or any kind of feedback. So please, if you have anything to ask us, if you have any questions about my experience or Ruth's experience or our work that we do, please just drop us a line and get in touch. Any ideas for future podcasts, if you've got any questions that you'd like answered in a podcast, or if you'd like to be a guest, even drop us a line and we can see what we can do. So
Okay.
yeah, thank you everybody for listening.
Okay. Thank you, Carly. Have a great one, everyone. Looking forward to the next episode.